4 o'clock, so I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. If you would, I'll lead us in the invocation. Please bow your head. Father, thank you so much for allowing the city to have a program like Tirz, and the effect that it will have on the downtown area and the citizens of this community. Thank you so much for allowing us to meet and discuss the matters of this committee. May we always keep in mind you as we make decisions. For it's in your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right. Yeah, I remember that. I didn't remember we did that here, but I guess all open meetings have that, don't they?
Most, yeah.
No?
Not all of them.
No. Okay. All right, approval of the minutes. I think we got a copy of those in an email.
Mm-hmm.
They're not here in front of me, so I'll be looking for a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Any changes, anything? All right. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Same sign for those not in favor. Looks like it is approved unanimously. All right, reports, be item number 5.
All right. Okay, Martin, I got it from here. We got a new monitor down here, so those of us who have to squint our eyes at the screens don't have to do that any longer. So this board doesn't meet that often.
Right.
And last time, I think I failed to do very good introductions for myself and for Megan, who is not here today. She had to be somewhere else. But Megan Folkerts is our senior management analyst in the city manager's office, and I'm Michael Hornis. I'm one of the assistant city managers here. So need to spend a little more time getting to know everybody in the community, and still need to do some of that with some of y'all. So this is a recap of the presentation that we did last time, and in addition to the project that the Tirz board funded, there's also a project that is simultaneously in the same area. That is a project that KPUB and the Economic Improvement Corporation funded. So we'll kind of go over those two and the distinction between them. Okay? So the project that y'all are participating in and pledged that $52,500 for is a community development block grant project that we have been working on for a long time. This goes back to 2021 and the beginning of 2021. And so CDBG grants are fantastic, and I love them. They're hard projects right now with inflation, and we want to get those dollars going as fast as we can, and this one certainly didn't go that way. So we just got done with a pre-bid meeting on the 24th, 2 days ago. The deadlines for their bids are going to be February 7th, and we're hoping that in March we're going to get started with construction on that project. So it was $350,000. Of that, $52,500 was the portion that Tirz was so kind to allocate towards that. And I even got, all right. So what we will see on here, it's kind of hard to read, but we're going to have traffic signal poles, pedestrian crossings, new curb ramps along here, new curb ramps all the way across. And I'll get into the EIC KPUB project, but a part of the KPUB project is going to be taking all of the overhead lines that you see on Earl Garrett Street and putting those lines underground. And they're also going to be redoing some stuff down here, and the EIC is going to do some beautification along the edge of the parking garage right there. And I think the last thing that KPUB's going to get done, and we'll talk about it, is they're going to do some string overhead lights, kind of same as you see over by Pint and Plow when you're over there.
You're showing us an exhibit at Earl Garrett and Water Street, not Clay Street and Water Street.
Oh, I am showing you an Earl Garrett and Water Street. Dang it. All right, let's do this again. Earl Garrett and Water Street. Let's talk about Earl Garrett and Water Street. These are going to be the same at both of these places. So, good golly, thank you for that. I'm never gonna get it. You guys meet so infrequently, I'm just gonna have my worst board meetings when I'm with y'all, and I apologize for that. So Earl Garrett and water, right? Traffic signals, pedestrian signals, all of that. Thank you. God, now water and Clay Street. All right, for the love of Pete. So, curb ramps, stop ahead signs, crosswalks, a lot of this has to do with ADA compliance. CDBG's directive on any of their transportation has to do with mobility. So this is gonna be a good one for us around here because there's some ADA issues that we all see right there at that intersection. Now, having said all that.
Michael, so the bids are due 1st of February,
The bids are due 1st of February, yes, sir.
and so, are we confident that we're gonna come in below the amount of funds you have, and if we don't, what are we gonna do? Or what are you gonna do?
So we're gonna have, there'll be alternate bids for everybody's submissions. So there's gonna be a base bid and there'll be an alternate bid. And this whole project was designed to, as we can, all that we can do, we will get done, you know, and so, there's the Clay Street and water portion of it. There's the Earl Garrett and, Water Street portion of it. And then there is the, get to the slide. The Water Street well repairs. So the first priority is the transportation portion and the
So
ADA.
you're just gonna cut back the project scope if you run out of money, is that?
That's exactly right.
That's fine,
Yeah,
that's all.
yeah. And we're not gonna come back and ask for more. We're gonna
Right,
do what, this is
okay.
what we got and this is what we're going with. So as we have money for it, we will, start with Earl Garrett and Water, move over to Clay Street and work on those things. And then we'll continue to work on all the additional kind of more beautification portions of it, as the funding is available for it. Now, since we talked about this last, I think there was some confusion about which projects were requested through Tirz and which projects were EIC projects and K-Pub. They were all happening at the same time. Everybody got their Amber Alerts on?
Yeah, they did.
We all got ours. So the EIC project really was in conjunction with this. I'm just gonna keep going. They're gonna go off on everybody's the whole time. The EIC, K-Pub really sought to go after this project once they knew there were other projects happening. And so we got the CDBG grant, and Mike Whitler from K-Pub said, you know, we really wanna promote this. Let me bring this up with my board. And so they happened simultaneously. And it was kind of confusing to distinguish one from the other. And we didn't realize that when we spoke to y'all last. And so I apologize for the confusion in that. But this garage streetscape project is a separate and different part, funded entirely by K-Pub and the EIC. So they asked us to go half on this. And so K-Pub's gonna put in $225 on their portion of it. The EIC is gonna put in the other $225. And then while they're doing that project, they will have dug up the front of that garage, the landscaping there. And so we, in addition to that, are gonna spend another around $130,000 from EIC to work on that. So if you can see here, right there in the front, that's gonna be the beautification that goes along the front of it. So K-Pub will have tore up this right here. And we're gonna come back behind it with a lot of the same kind of things that you see at the tennis center, that xeriscaping right there. Some new wrought iron to go along there. And we'll see how it works, but we're gonna put some plants in that match along that. Now, this is Clay Street and water, for those of you unfamiliar. Thank y'all for keeping me on my toes here. So these overhead power lines right here, about 60 feet south of Main Street right there, they're gonna start putting those underground. And they're gonna install some underground conduit that's gonna service, properties on the other side of Water Street, the HHHC, and any future build-outs that happen on that side of water over there. And they're gonna put some overhead string lighting, as I was talking about, right here, and that's gonna kind of go across from the parking garage to the vocals engineering. Not actually tied to the building. They're gonna put poles up so it's independent of them, both of them. And again, that streetscape's gonna be beautified along that whole area right there. So, current downtown projects and how this kind of aligns with it. Heart of the Hills Heritage Center. If y'all have seen in the paper, Heart of the Hills is going through a design build process. We've selected a contractor to begin negotiations with, so we just had meetings with those folks, starting to get towards construction documents with them on kind of a 30% construction document set. And that'll really kind of firm up, start to give us a scope of what's going to happen at HHHC. And that's a $4 million project that's going to be going on there. And then cuts, I think, as these projects move along, this obviously aligns with what cuts is looking for. And we'll see what kind of artwork projects they might try to envision in that area. All right, I got one more on projects that we got going. There it is. Martin, if you could pull up that next slide. There's two other projects that I wanted to mention that are kind of highlights for the Tirz district. One of which I don't really have a slide for, but it's near the area we'll be talking about here. So at Tuesday night's council meeting, there was a resolution passed to approve up to $12.5 million of revenue bonds for the utility infrastructure in the city. One of the projects that's going to be funded through that is a $300,000 project that is right here along Water Street, and it's going to be from Washington Street down to Tivy, and that's going to be taking one of those old, maybe 90-year-old cast iron pipes and replacing that. So that's a big focus for the utility department, is to replace that cast iron piping that's in town. And I just wanted to highlight that because that's one of the areas within the Tirz. And the second one is actually not, I don't have a slide for it, and it happened last year, but they replaced a dead-end 2-inch line on E Street, just south of where we're talking about right here, between Water Street and 27. There was a 2-inch kind of dead-end line, and they replaced that with an 8-inch line that looped that system, which thereby increases the pressure that we all have in those areas. So just wanted to talk through those real quick on utility projects that they're working on in the Tirz district. And with that, that's pretty much it for the projects that I have, and I'll take any questions y'all have.
Michael, this line, I assume it's in the street somewhere, this cast iron line.
Yeah.
And so they're gonna be digging that street. I also think I heard Stuart or somebody said at council that line eventually all the way down Water Street is gonna have to be replaced. Past the library, eventually they're gonna have to do it all once we get money.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that activity, is that work going in any way tear up the work we're doing for the beautification of the parking lot? That's what I was.
No, so.
Okay.
Yeah, so as any of that work gets done on future projects, when the utility department sees it, they'll either put in conduit right where it's happening for a future phase. No, because we don't want our streets to be dug up any more than they need to be.
But that will have to be dug up eventually, is what I heard Stuart say. And I just guess, where in the street do we know where that line is? Is it in the middle of the street, north side, south side, east?
That one's on the south side of the street.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Now they switch all over. You're gonna cross from one to the other one, but right over there, that one's on the south side of the street.
Other questions?
I can say that we have a lot of development conversations happening. And they're progressing. And we have, there was stuff in the paper the other day about Spring Hill Suites, actually. And there's a filing with the state for Spring Hill Suites here in Kerrville. They incorrectly said it was $5 million hotel. It's a $10 million build, not a $5 million one. That is an express hotel, not too dissimilar from Holiday Inn in terms of the amenities offered. So they've dropped a permit application, but that's kind of where we are. We haven't gotten any further than that. Other things that are coming through are still kind of in the process of coming through, so we can't really publicly speak about any of that stuff. And so we're hopeful that as this year progresses, we're gonna ask the Tirz board to meet before the next regularly scheduled meeting, but I can't tell you that that's gonna happen. I'm just hopeful that it does.
Gotcha.
With that, that's all I have.
All right, any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, moving on to 5B, which are financial reports.
Yeah, so we have some great new technology
Yay.
that really keeps us all confused. So I've only used this once and it wasn't super pretty, so y'all just bear with me for this. So I want to do just a couple quick follow-ups to some notes Michael said just as he was talking, some things I thought were important. So on the water line discussion, I don't know if you remember, but we did part of the water line around the Gibsons to 5 Point area. Whenever we already had the streets torn up, we were going to repave those. So part of what Public Works will do a lot of times is say, we're fixing to pave X, and especially if they're going to do a full depth reconstruction, they'll take a look at that as a total project. So Westminster, for example, one of the things we've been waiting on was to be able to fund the entire project, which includes we're going to tear it up. So let's do the utility lines at the same time. And so they really do a pretty good job of trying to line those. If TxDOT comes in and has something torn up, if we can align dollars right, we try to do those. The other thing that I was going to point out, because Michael was talking about grant dollars, is just, I'm not sure that you know, and we report this out at council, sometimes give updates, but we do seek a lot of outside funding. So in the past year, we are close to $6 million in awards and outside funding. So whether it's public safety, several public safety grants, brand new body cameras, some ballistic shields and some other things, so several $100,000 there. We have a $4.6 million award from FEMA and TDM for generators. So after winter storms, kind of the big push was how do we keep power even when we don't have power, and so those aren't here yet, but that is one project that's already been awarded to us. And then things like airport runway, so TxDOT, we work with them quite a bit, and the folks at the airport do some of that grant writing too. So because we have to support the airport, that's an 80-20 runway project we have right now. It's like 1.2 million. So we're only funding 20% of that, split with the county. So I will say that as a whole, we really do try to maximize funding wherever we can. So we know that's saving taxpayer dollars and being able to use those in other places. So just thought that was worth mentioning. And also HHHC is $2 million funded from outside sources for that project. So overall, we do a lot of work on that, and we have some people that really take that on in addition to their regular capacity. So it's a lot of work, but it's worth the reward when you see those dollars come in. Okay, so financials, a little bit more. I think most of you guys have been here, but just to give you a little bit of history, your fund can fund only projects within the geographical area in which the Tirz is established. And I know you guys have all seen this, but just for a little bit of history, you do have a year-end financial report at your place that is provided to the comptroller, in addition with an online report that we have to do with them also. So basically, increment is what the revenue is for this fund. And so basically that is looking at the property tax valuations in the base year, which is 2018, and then comparing those to what we expect to collect in current year, and the difference in that is the increment. So that's how we come up with the revenue for this fund. This was just an illustration that actually one of our accounting folks drew. Not a design person, but, and it just was a good illustration of assessed value and increment. So the green here is your base value. So if you assume that was 2018 in this case, and then the difference there is increment. So you can tell that as values grow, then that increment grows. And we've also talked about when tax exempt properties come on board, that value can go down. And so there's a lot of variations that go into calculating that. And of course, we want to be conservative. We try to be as realistic as we can, knowing that entities can go back 2 years and apply for an exemption. So even if they've already paid, then we would have to refund that. It happens in the general fund also. It's just you don't notice the dollars like you do in this kind of budget. So we just really try to stay in touch with the tax assessor so we can report out to you guys when that happens. And I didn't include the entire year-end report in this presentation, just an overview. This is just a look of your geographical area that this covers and your boundaries to where the money has to stay and also be used. And this is also where we consider valuations for collections. So established in 2018, so fiscal year 2019. So fiscal year 2020 would have been our first year for collections. So this will be the third year that we will be putting money into the Tirz fund. And again, you know, public improvements like we talked about, streets, water and infrastructure, parks and open spaces, and your funding can even be used for economic development grants to businesses if you so choose. So as part of our annual report, the comptroller is very clear on what we have to submit. So we have to tell them the amount and where our revenue comes from. If we have purpose, any expenditures, what the purpose of those expenditures are and the amount we expend. And then if we take on any debt, which at this point, the Tirz fund has 0 debt. We have to tell them what our base is and what our current captured appraised value is. And if we had any shared value, which we don't, many Tirz share with other taxing entities. And so that amount is divided up accordingly, depending on their agreement. And then the amount of tax increment that we received in the prior year. This is just a look back from 2021 actuals. And these say actuals because 2022s are not budgeted yet, which is why you'll see year-end 2022 says estimated. I'm sorry, audited. Once we get our audit, then that will change to actual, but those are your actual numbers. So you can see in 2021, your year-end fund balance, 58.6, and original budgeted revenues for fiscal year 22 was 62.8. But remember, we did have some refunding due to some property that sold to the county that became exempt, and then also there was another larger taxpayer that facility became tax exempt in that time period. So your ending fund balance for 2022, and I think this is spot on to what we reported out last time, 110,255. And then estimating just based on what we saw in July for certified rolls for property tax of a revenue this year of 281,000, which includes some interest. That interest may be larger given our current market. So your interest citywide is divided by the cash balance of each fund. So the amount of cash that you have on hand is how interest is allocated based on percentage of all funds. We're still watching that budget really closely. I mean, it's a little bit early for us to be predicting what will happen or won't happen. I can tell you that all of the reviews and the protests have been settled with the exception of one. That one is in litigation, and they're expected to hopefully settle that one within a couple of weeks. It is one of our larger taxpayers. So until we have that, you know, we won't really know exactly how we're feeling. What I can tell you today is that the tax assessor billed out $852,000 in Tirz total. Our base year being $542,000. So the difference of that would be your increment. Right now, we have about $39,000 that we can transfer over to that fund as of today. I don't have a slide for that because I just got an update today just to see where we were. We still have 32% to collect. So, you know, we'll continue to report out. If that's something you'd like to see before your next meeting, I'm happy to share that quarterly, just to let you know where we are as far as overall revenues. I don't think that's a problem at all.
What's those numbers, Judy? Can you restate?
I'm sorry?
Can you restate
Yes,
those?
I will. I'm sorry, I don't have a slide for that. Like I said, I just got them today.
What did the tax assessor bill out? What was the base?
$852,000 billed out.
Yeah.
And then 542 was your base year collections.
So that's a 300,000
If all things
annual increment.
correct, is what we would expect. We had originally budgeted 281, because remember, we budget on what is certified at the time. And at the time in July, we still had a lot of protests, and so we just want to be super conservative and say we're only going to budget on what we know to be true. We had a lot of protests in that fund.
Then I thought the last number you said was 30,000?
39,000 we have already earned, so we are able to, and I just got that number today. And we wouldn't do a transfer until month end, so we'll take a look at that number at the end of the month. And
So we're still $260,000 away
right, but
from.
yeah, but
It's
it's
gonna happen in your
super
company.
early. It's
Oh,
very
is it?
early.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
So
always pay my taxes in
yeah,
January. I don't know
the
about
bulk
it.
of our taxes get received in December and January. We do have some half pay folks out there, but we usually have about 70% by the end of January or better. And then it just kind of goes down from there. By March, we can be pretty sure that we're as collected as we're going to be, and it should be just a small percentage that remains. And Bob Reeves gives me those every month, and so we just track those and see. And then if he has any refunds, he lets me know those. But we communicate on a regular basis about what's going on with property tax. So as of right now, today, I will say you got about 39,000 that can be added to that fund balance. So
And so the fund
More to
balance
come.
is not reflecting the $52,000 we pledged.
that's right, because we didn't budget for that, so to speak. So that's something that Trina and I are going to have to kind of decide as this fund grows and becomes more active. We'll treat it somewhat like EIC. So you'll have an established budget with committed projects, and so we'll end up showing you more of like a cash flow forecast instead of a budget, so that it doesn't look up a budget amendment. In this small of a expenditure, there's no reason to go through that budget amendment process and have to take it to council and all those kind of things. We can handle it as committed projects.
Good.
Okay. So you have this in front of you in more detail, but this is just giving you a snapshot of what we report to the comptroller with ending fund balance, as far as what we received last year in revenue. I'm sorry, and then no expenditures. We don't share this money with any other funds. And then number 4 is really the one of interest, and that shows you the growth in the fund and the change in valuation. The 18 million there. That's the number that that's the increment taxable value, so the growth in the fund. Kind of just restating the same thing with ending fund balances we just talked about, and then I was going to mention the 52.5 that you have committed, obviously comes out of that fund balance and will be netted at year end with what you commit. That money, of course, won't be moved until we find out more about that project and what's happening, so we'll be bringing you back updates on that as the bids come in and all those things, all that good stuff. So
Yeah, I think we can, since our next scheduled meeting isn't gonna be probably till is it August, I think.
it'll be before that because of budget. It'll have to be June or July.
June or July, but I think given that we'll have most of the property tax information by the end of March, and we'll have a lot more on the project scope, we can send out, if we don't have another meeting, just send out an update to the board signifying those things for y'all. So,
And I'm happy to send out a quarterly report that would just bring you an update. In the beginning, it's the very first quarter, there's really nothing to report because we haven't collected enough yet as of the end of December, because our collections have to exceed our base year before any money is moved. By the second quarter, we're usually moving money and then every quarter after that. So happy to do that, and I can just send it to you and you can send it with project updates if that's what you choose.
Perfect.
Okay. Any questions on financials or anything that I can provide to you that we're not currently providing?
I hear it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, no need for executive session, or any actions on any items. So, I guess that concludes the meeting. Are we finished?
Just a matter of curiosity, on the annual report, there's no action required by this board to either accept it, approve it, recommend it, or anything, it's just reported.
Correct.
Is that correct?
It's required by the state, and then we provide a report to every taxing entity saying what we provided to the state.
But this, did we provide this to the state after our last meeting?
We haven't submitted it for 22.
Oh, you have not submitted it?
Yeah,
Okay.
we haven't, well, I don't think I submitted today, but
That's okay.
it's not due until April. So
Okay.
we have to,
Okay.
we have that first 2 quarters at March 31st, and we have to submit that by. So as soon as we submit it, we also provide it to the tax assessor, which we're not required to, but since they handle our collections, it's good to let them know so they know what's going on.
Good. Anything else? If nothing else, it's 4:29. I could wait like 12 more seconds, so it's actually 4:30, but I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. Thank you for attending.
Made it under 30 minutes.